Welcome to Saving Energy, Money, and Lives: How Energy Efficiency Has Changed American Homes. Thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us. My name is Caitlin Sock, and I am a Clean Energy Associate with Environment America Research and Policy Center. I'll be giving a brief overview of this webinar's hosts, introducing our speakers and our agenda. This webinar is hosted by Environment America Research and Policy Center. We have one mission that drives everything that we do, and that is to protect our natural world. We envision a better, greener America, one that protects and restores more places where all life can thrive and offers us and our children the opportunity to live healthier, more enriching lives. This webinar is co-hosted by U.S. PIRG Education Fund, which conducts research, policy analysis, and public education to advance solutions to problems that affect consumers' health, safety, and well-being. And our last co-host is Frontier Group, which is a nonprofit research and policy organization that provides information and ideas to build a healthier, more sustainable America. And we'll get started with an overview of a brand new home energy data visualization tool from Frontier Group's Associate Director, Tony Dutzik. And then we'll move on to our panel of energy efficiency experts, all of whom will introduce themselves in more detail later on. But we are very excited to have Madeline Salzman from Earth Advantage, Marcy Cleveland with New Energy Project Management, Lorenzo Sanchez of Groundwork Denver, Seth Little of Clear Result, and Francesca Arato and Sapna Giwala Dowla of the Alliance to Save Energy. You'll get a chance to hear from each of our panelists, and then we'll have a quick panel discussion and a question and answer session. So if you have any questions at all that you'd like to ask, please make full use of that Q&A function. And with that, I'll hand it off to Tony Dutzik with an exciting new data visualization tool from Frontier Group. Tony, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin. As Caitlin mentioned, my name is Tony Dutzik. I'm the Associate Director and Senior Policy Analyst at Frontier Group. And I'm here to talk with you today about an invisible revolution that has been happening in the American home. And that revolution is the big reduction in household energy use that has happened over the last several decades, thanks in large part to improvements in energy efficiency. Slowly and almost imperceptibly, our appliances, light bulbs, and furnaces have been using less energy to provide us with similar or even better comfort and convenience at home, while at the same time, enhanced building energy codes and weatherization efforts have reduced the amount of energy that we're wasting through cracks and leaks. The benefits of that change for both our households and our country have been massive. But those benefits can sometimes haven't come by accident. They've been the result of decades of smart public policy work, and unfortunately, right now, a lot of those advances are in jeopardy, are coming under attack. So, if we want to continue our progress toward burning less energy and burning less money at home, this invisible revolution can't stay invisible. We need to find ways to make it visible and its benefits apparent to the American public. And that's what our data visualization that we're releasing here today is hoping to help make happen. Next slide. So to illustrate what these gains mean for American homes, our team, spearheaded by Policy Associate Kylie Hansen, used data from the Energy Information Administration's Residential Energy Consumption Survey, which has measured home energy use since the 1980s. Now, it's important to note that the survey doesn't measure energy efficiency directly. It measures household energy use and the use by various systems. That means that variations in the locations and types of homes being built and year-to-year changes in weather patterns can make a difference in the data. But the story is still unmistakable. A typical U.S. household used 26% less energy in 2020 than a typical home did back in 1993. And when adjusted to today's dollars, the average household spent more than $400 less on energy than it did in 1993. Thanks to both reduced energy use and a cleaner grid, the average home was responsible for about a third less climate change-inducing carbon dioxide pollution than a typical home was in 1993. So how does this happen? It has happened as a result of changes that have taken place throughout our homes, with major impacts on our energy use. For example, and by the way, all of these are slides that are taken from the visualization, which is much more interactive and fun than I'm going to be presenting in the slideshow today, and definitely would encourage you to check it out. But in 2020, for example, our homes on average used almost 40% less energy for space heating than they did in 1993. Next slide. We used about a quarter less energy for water heating. Next slide. And we used almost 40% less electricity for refrigeration and spent about $132 per household less on energy for refrigeration than we did in 1993. Next slide. Maybe the most astounding progress has actually been made in lighting, where we've moved in the span of a couple of decades from energy wasting incandescent bulbs to compact fluorescents to LEDs. And just between 2001 and 2020, the average household used about 30% less electricity for lighting. And just between 2015 and 2020, we cut our household electricity bill for lighting by almost $88. We can expect that these benefits would only continue to grow beyond 2020 as we continue to phase older light bulbs out of our homes and transition to LEDs. Now, it's worth noting here that there are some aspects in our homes where we're using more energy than we did a couple of decades ago. We use more energy on air conditioning as well as for TVs and other electronic gadgets. But again, the overall picture is clear that this invisible revolution in energy efficiency that's been taking place over the last few decades is delivering meaningful benefits in our lives. Next slide. And those benefits extend beyond the four walls of our homes. The amount of electricity that we've saved in just refrigerators, lighting, and clothes dryers since 2001 saves the equivalent of about 1 1/3 times the amount of smog-forming nitrogen oxide pollution that is produced by the nation's dirtiest power plant each year. And the amount of sulfur dioxide pollution that we save is equivalent to about half of the most polluting power plant each year. So in a very real way, our efficient fridges and dryers are making breathing easier and reducing the sickness and death that results from air pollution. Next slide. So why hasn't this gotten more attention? I think it's because unlike, say, wind or solar power, most of these changes have taken place incrementally year after year in millions of individual American homes around the country. After all, a fridge today looks a lot like a fridge back in 1980. It might be stainless steel instead of avocado colored, but basically the same thing. Despite the fact that the real change that has taken place is a radical improvement in the efficiency with which it uses energy. But if we are going to maintain our energy efficiency gains and build on them, the invisibility of this revolution needs to change. We need to find ways to make it visible to more Americans, and we hope our new visualization will help with that task, and we look forward to working with all of you to help spread the word. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Tony. We really appreciate you sharing that new tool with us. We'll actually also be sending the link to that tool for everyone to explore once the webinar has concluded as well. But in the meantime, I'm very pleased to kick off our panelist presentations with Madeline Salzman with an overview of programs that have contributed to developing energy efficient technologies. Maddie, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. And thank you, Tony, for sharing that tool. I'm excited to check it out myself. And yeah, you mentioned some of the similar types of numbers to what I've been thinking about here in terms of just trying to illuminate how much energy efficiency, like you said, often goes unseen, but is really doing a lot for all of us. So thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to you all. My name is Madeline Salzman, and I'm the Associate Director of Market Solutions at Earth Advantage, which is a nonprofit focused on equitable housing decarbonization through making access to climate-friendly housing easier. And prior to joining Earth Advantage, I was at the U.S. Department of Energy for 8 years working on housing projects in the residential buildings program, as well as working on the home energy rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act. So I cannot possibly go over everything that DOE has done and continues to do to support energy efficiency over the last 49 years. Actually, next year is going to be the 50th year of DOE working to support energy efficiency. But I think it's just useful to understand that energy efficiency has actually been core to DOE's mission from the very beginning. DOE began as an agency in 1977 as a reaction to the oil crisis, and then President Jimmy Carter really seeing that there were opportunities to support energy efficiency, to reduce household burdens, whether it's cost or just being able to meet daily needs. Actually, in that same year, the Weatherization Assistance Program, which continues to this day, started, which supports low-income energy efficiency installations in housing all across the country. And then since then, there's been a lot more work to do research on energy efficiency. So when I was at the Department of Energy, like I said, worked on the housing team. And there's been various offices that have focused on everything from early stage research to like brand new technologies. DOE funding actually helped to invent the LED light bulb, which actually Tony referred to as like one of the major gains in lighting efficiency over the last few decades. I worked myself on research related to energy deployment. And so what are things that make investing in energy efficient technologies hard for people? I worked a lot on a program called Home Energy Score, focused on providing miles per gallon ratings for housing so that when you go to buy or rent a place to live, you have a sense of what your energy costs may be. And then some of the biggest impacts have been codes and standards that enable policies at a federal and local level to support energy efficiency for everybody. I will stop there. We have plenty of panelists, but just to give a flavor of what's going on.
Thanks so much, Maddie. Really appreciate it. And then I also have a link from Maddie to drop in the chat to the Green Building Registry that she wanted to share with our attendees here. And now we're going to dive a little bit deeper on one program in particular, and that's the Energy Star program with Sapna Giwala from the Alliance to Save Energy. Sapna, go right ahead.
Thank you, Caitlin, and hi everyone. Thank you for being here with us, and I'm excited to talk about something most of us may have seen at a big box store or even maybe in our homes, and if we haven't thought about it as much, but that's Energy Star. And so my name is Sapna Giwala, like Caitlin said. I'm coming from the Alliance to Save Energy, and so we're a nonprofit. We focus on energy efficiency at the federal level, and we focus on making sure energy efficiency is a part of the conversation when our leaders and our policymakers are talking about energy policy. And so making sure efficiency is a part of that conversation is very important to us, especially through energy efficiency education and advocacy. A little bit about my background. I've been a part of energy efficiency probably most of my career. I've been at the Federal Regulatory Commission. I've been at the Department of Energy, like Maddie as well. And then I actually worked on the utility side at American Gas Association, but also now coming to the Alliance to Save Energy, focusing on energy efficiency and kind of bipartisanship at that federal level. So making sure everyone can talk about it. So I want to dive a little bit into Energy Star, which is a great program that has been part of a government-backed symbol around energy efficiency and administered by the Environmental Protection Agency, so EPA. And so when you see that blue label, it means, that product or even home, because it's part of buildings as well, has met a very high performance standard for energy efficiency itself. And so it's a very simple signal to really help consumers make smart decisions without having to decode so much technical specifications, which, I'm an energy efficiency nerd at heart. And so I know we can get very deep into things very quickly. So just a brief history and recognition of the Energy Star program. It started in 1992 and has grown to actually become one of the most recognized consumer labels across the country. So it has more than a 90 to 95% recognition rate in American households since then. And so they understand and recognize Energy Star logo. So you all might as well. And that level of recognition really matters. It means that consumers are trusting it. They're seeing it. They are trying to understand it. And it means that the label has really become a part of how people are shopping for appliances, for lighting, for heating, for cooling, and potentially even new homes as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about the impact. And so since the launch of Energy Star, its partners have helped Americans save over $500 billion in energy costs. And so that's money that stays in family budgets instead of going to utility bills or any other expense. And so on average, a household can actually save about hundreds of dollars per year by choosing Energy Star certified products, whether it's a refrigerator, a dishwasher, to heating systems and light bulbs, like we've talked about a couple of times as well. So there's a lot of small and a lot of big kind of upgrades and conversations you can have around energy efficiency itself. And these savings don't come from sacrificing comfort, right? At the end of the day, I may not look at my HVAC that's in my basement, but I know if I'm comfortable in my home or not. And so they really come from reducing wasted energy and not sacrificing that comfort. And so a quick example from my own home around DC is, if you're living through the DC winter, you know that it can be very unpredictable. One week is mild, the next week is below freezing. We got a lot of snow and ice a couple weeks ago. A few years ago, we actually upgraded to an Energy Star heating system, and that really improved some of our insulation and air sealing. And so the difference is very noticeable. You can really feel the house is warmer throughout the day. Of course, there's a few cold spots near the windows, but that happens. But that just means, less strain on the system when temperatures are dropping sharply. And our winter bills, you can see that actually. And I'm one of those nerds. I told you I like to track what I'm paying for in terms of energy. And so I can see that compared to previous years, it has gone down. So nothing too dramatic, nothing too flashy, but steady performance and comfort itself. And so how does all of this happen? And so Energy Star is a voluntary public-private partnership. So EPA sets the energy performance specifications for many different types of products, and we'll send a link in the chat so folks can take a look if you're interested. And then consumers are able to look at that, whether they're standing in a store, they're shopping online. You can look for that label, and it's a quick signal that really showcases products are performing efficiently. So it really helps to simplify that decision making. You don't have to be an engineer. I am not an engineer. You can make that energy efficiency choice. And so beyond kind of lowering bills, Energy Star products can last longer and reduce maintenance costs overall, and in some cases quantify for rebates as well. And I know we'll talk about that in a little while, but depending on where you're living, it could help in that space as well. And so today, Energy Star continues to operate, and it remains at EPA and funded through federal appropriations. The program currently certifies products, homes, commercial buildings, kind of nationwide. And so the key takeaway there is that label remains active and continues to serve as a trusted standard in the marketplace. And so I know I wanted to focus on this very big picture at the Energy Star level. So I know we'll dive a little bit deeper, and if folks have any questions, happy to take them. And I know we'll be able to talk a little bit more about how you all might be able to use this going forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sapna. We really appreciate it. And yeah, everybody, please continue to submit questions to the Q&A. We have some rolling in, so thanks to those of you who have already submitted some questions. Up next, we have Marcy Cleveland with New Energy Project Management for sort of a whole home view of home energy efficiency. So Marcy, go right ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. I actually want to note that that's not my email address on the on the slide there, so I'm sure we'll get that corrected. But hi, everybody. I'm Marcy Cleveland. I am the Director of Residential Energy Solutions at New Energy Project Management. So I work directly with homeowners helping them understand their homes and how they can improve their home energy use. And my journey into energy efficiency actually started back in 2019 when I attended a climate summit in New York. And that's where I learned that 32% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings, primarily from using fossil fuels to heat and produce our hot water. So I was working in real estate at the time, and that statistic stopped me because I was someone who was walking through homes every day and just, that were quietly burning fossil fuels, and neither myself nor the home buyers that I was working with, really understood that impact and what that meant. So for me, that was a turning point. And I realized that I could help homeowners become part of the solution instead of unknowingly contributing to the problem. And that's when I decided to transition into building science. I became a certified building analyst. I started my own building assessment company and really started working with homeowners to help them understand how their homes perform. And I've actually done many of those home energy score assessments that Maddie referred to earlier. And some of the things that I learned is that energy efficiency really only works when we treat the home as a system. The cheapest energy is the energy that we never use in the first place. So reducing energy demand through energy efficiency measures should come first. Too often, I've done home assessments on houses where the homeowners jumped straight into new equipment and technologies, such as they went out and got heat pumps or they installed solar, high efficiency appliances without first addressing the building envelope. And that simply just means the box that we live in. And so when that happens, those homeowners really were not getting the comfort, the savings, or the performance that they expected. And I thought, well, why is this happening? So I developed a simple framework for people just to help them remember how to do things in the right order. And there is an order. So I tell folks, if you want to have an awesome house, you have to follow the steps of AWE. AWE meaning A for assess, W for weatherize, and E for electrify. So first, assess, how is the home performing? Second, you want to reduce energy demand through air sealing and insulation, because when you lower demand, everything that follows just works better. So then you can get to E for electrification. You then install your heat pumps, your heat pump hot water heaters, your EV chargers, your solar. When we reduce energy demand first, the systems are then sized properly, energy bills drop, and the home simply performs better. Room temperatures are way more consistent and drafts disappear. So energy efficiency isn't just about kilowatt hours. It's about how the home feels to live in. Is it comfortable? Is the indoor air quality good? Is it resilient? And reducing energy consumption is also better for the environment. So you don't have to do all of these upgrades at once, but if you're going to invest in your home, you have to invest in the right order. Start with understanding it, reduce the demand, then electrify, because you need to have a plan, and energy efficiency makes better homes for people and the planet. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Appreciate you bearing with us. I have Marcy's email in the chat for anyone who wants to get in touch with her. And next, we're going to actually hear from Lorenzo Sanchez from Groundwork Denver with some practical tips for how to spot those energy issues that Marcy was talking about, and how to shop for efficient appliances. So, Lorenzo, you go right ahead.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Lorenzo. I'm the Energy Program Director at Groundwork Denver. We're a local nonprofit centered in Denver, centered in environmental justice and sustainability. So what we do is we go to homes, low-income homes, and help them weatherize everything that Marcy was talking about, check their insulation levels, the efficiency of their appliances, and we do this all at no cost to the resident. So I'm gonna go through some of the stuff that as soon as I walk into a home, this is what I'm looking for. Next slide. And also, I was a former math teacher, so that pick was like me as a math teacher. And then I transitioned to this sector during the pandemic. So this is a little bit of background of our organization. We've been in Denver for over like 20 years. We've been doing this residential stuff for 15 years. Probably been over 1,000 homes. Some of our crew right here. So let's go on to the next slide. The easy stuff right away. As soon as I walk into a home, I'm looking at their doors. So if you look at this picture on the one on the right, if you can see light, so you can see like that sunlight. We're inside the home. If you can see light around your door from the frame of the door, that's an air leak. If light can get in, that means heat can get out. Um, so our elderly clients, we work with a lot of families with like on fixed income, retired individuals. They they feel this stuff. Like a younger person can feel that, like ignore the drafts, but like they're very sensitive to the cold, and they call us out like, I want you to dress my door. Cracks around the windows, door. So the picture on the left is from a home that's actually on the outside of the home, huge crack. And heat is escaping through the frame of the home, and they need new windows. Like single pane windows, the original from the house when the house was built in the 1950s. But basically, like the way I think, any crack around windows, like caulking around the windows, is going to be an energy leak, and you can just see it. Any light, any sunlight coming in from the outside, energy leak. Address it right away. So you can address them through like weather stripping, caulking, door seals, and you can get the stuff at hardware stores. Next slide. So yeah, so this is an example of the door seals I was talking about. This is what we do. Our team does door sweeps in and around the door. So the one on the right is from the outside, and then the two on the left, I think, are from the inside. So now there's no more light coming in. I believe that's accurate. Yeah. So also, I have a point right here. You get what you pay for, meaning we used to do. Oh man. So we can go to the next slide. Harder to spot air leaks. Harder to spot air leaks, plumbing penetrations, holes in the walls. So this right here is a picture of like a plumber who like went in, did a bunch of work, and just left that. Essentially, he's gonna escape into the frame of the home and out into the attic. Let's move on to the next slide. And furnace filters are going to reduce your efficiency of your furnace. So we can move on to the next slide. Safety concerns. So now we're getting into water heaters. Oh, sorry about that. But we're getting into water heaters and furnaces, and I think some of our other panelists are going to talk about that as well. So we could just continue on. But yeah, like I do like a lot of the actual work, holes in, yeah, we can continue. You're seeing holes and stuff in the exhaust flues, tons of safety concerns. Different types of water heaters, are some that are more efficient than others. Here we have PVC pipes. PVC pipes, to me, is the signal that this is a high efficiency water heater or a furnace. It means it's a 95% condensing furnace or a power vented water heater. So we can move on. Yeah, and then here we have just some other tips like thermal curtains, ceiling fan stuff, take shorter showers, stuff that we recommend to our clients. And I think that might be all for our section.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Lorenzo. And up next, we've got Francesca Arado on the easiest upgrades and behavior changes for us to make to conserve energy, as you know, as consumers, as families, as homeowners. Francesca, go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Francesca. Like Sapna, I work at the Alliance to Save Energy. I will today cover some of the things that you can do in your home today to make it more energy efficient. I will reiterate some of the things that Lorenzo and Marcy already said earlier, so we can go over them quickly. But one thing to start that I would like to start with is that 52%, which is more than half of our energy that we use in our homes, is used for heating and cooling. So definitely the first place where to start is that. As you can see in that image on the right, that shows all the air that comes in and out of our house. That house has a lot of gaps and therefore wastes a lot of energy. And many homes are like that. So if we move on to the next slide, as Lorenzo already said, we can first of all seal air leaks in your attic and basement. Caitlin will share with you a link in the chat later because with a very good guide that can teach you how to seal and insulate your home also in a safe way. If we move on to the next slide, another thing for you to check is heating and cooling ducts. Very often there are gaps or even disconnections in the ducts, which cause a lot of energy waste. So go ahead, seal them with mastic or foil tape, and you can even insulate the duct so that you can really keep all that heat or cool inside the duct. Moving on to the next slide, check your attic insulation. If it's level with or below the floor joist, you should add more insulation. Make sure though, as you can see in the picture in the middle, before you do that, make sure to insert some rafter vents that allow air to come in and go out from the top of your roof, as you see on the right. I know at first it may seem odd to add insulation and then purposely allow air to enter in your attic, but this is very important because in the summer you want all that air, the hot air, to go out of your attic, and during the winter you also want to avoid the warmth that may be in your attic to melt the snow and create some ice blocks and damage your roof. And then in general it's really good to reduce moist in your attic. Caitlin will also put in the chat a link to choose the best insulation for your area, because different areas, depending on where you live in the United States, require different kind of insulation. In the next slide, this Lorenzo, you already covered this topic. Make sure to change the filter in your HVAC because if they're dirty, the air just use more energy to pass through, therefore wasting a lot of energy. So if you live in a place where you don't have a basement or an attic, for example, an apartment, you can, join people, meet with the people that live in the apartment, talk to your home landlord, and maybe together you can find a way to build a high-performing envelope of the whole building. But anyway, there are other things that you can do both in your home and apartment to work again more on energy efficiency. We can move to the next slide. As Lorenzo already mentioned, you can add some weather stripping and caulking, door sweep. Something I recommend you, if you have children in your family, make a DIY draft socks with them. This is a very fun activity that can teach them at an early age why energy efficiency is so important, both for us and the comfort of our homes, but also for protecting the environment. It's a very fun activity for the children. And then you can put window insulation film kit, some solar film if you live in a hot place, more in the south, so you can keep those that sun out. We can move on to the next slide. Even for small gaps in the wall, you can add some insulation sealers behind outlets and switch plates on the wall. You can even add some radiator reflector panels to reflect the heat back into the room. Of course, you can switch to LED lights that consume a fraction of your incandescent and CFL. Then if we move on to the next slide, a super important energy waste in our homes is all the energy that is used by appliances when they are turned off. So, of course, we don't want to spend so much time unplugging all our devices, but use a smart plug so that with one button you can shut off all your appliances to avoid that vampire power, which is all the energy used when your appliances are turned off. And then consider using high efficiency shower heads. I know they had a bad reputation in the past, but now if you look for the WaterSense label, it's an approved EPA label that not only gives you efficiency shower heads, but also gives you the comfort and the water pressure that you want while taking your shower. And then in the next slide, this is exactly what Marcy was saying. Before you even start doing all of these things, have an home energy assessment done. You can contact your local utility company and ask them if they offer free energy audits and also some rebates. You may have some rebates that are just there and you don't know about. And these are just some of the tips of things that you can do tomorrow in your home.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Francesca. A lot of really helpful insights there. Last but not least for our panelists, we have Seth Little of ClearResult, who will cover sort of the benefits of energy efficiency in the home.
Thanks, Caitlin. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Seth Little. I work for maybe the largest company that you've never heard of. We're called ClearResult, and we are the leading provider of energy efficiency and what we call demand-side management programs on behalf of utilities in North America. And, that's pretty interesting to me, but maybe why it might be interesting to you folks is that means that we do a lot of really interesting things that many of the panelists have touched on so far this afternoon, but at a really large scale. And so we have access to kind of a lot of data and a lot of customer experiences as folks have tried to make their homes more comfortable. For example, I think we work with over 30,000 HVAC and weatherization contractors over the US and Canada. We perform the kind of assessments that Marcy and Francesca mentioned for over 250,000 homes in the US each year. And Marcy, I gotta say, I might have to steal awe, but we follow a very similar sort of pathway. And when we do those 250,000 assessments a year, the big value that we get from that, and oftentimes that homeowners get from that, really is kind of connection with an expert in building science, and to Francesca's point about the utility programs, a connection to the available offerings. And I will say that across the US and Canada, over 80% of the population lives in either a state or a province where at the state government level, there is a mandate for the utilities to increase their efficiency, their system-wide efficiency. And the amount of the target varies considerably kind of state to state. And then there are states and provinces that don't have these standards. But again, 80% of the population of North America is covered by some sort of state level mandate that their utility run programming. So that means that I would imagine that the overwhelming majority of people on this call exist within a utility territory, and these extend to electric and gas utilities, to offer programming directly to customers to help you cut down on your energy bill. And depending particularly on the homeowner's income level, you can see incentives or rebate payments that can cover 50 to 100% of what we call the incremental cost to an improvement to your home for your home's efficiency. And often the incremental cost is kind of the difference between just replacing a piece of equipment and then replacing it with a more efficient version. And so definitely, your utility has a website, and very often the utilities framework is under Save Energy. So if you just Google your utility and then Save Energy, it is very likely that there is programming there to help you increase the efficiency of your home. And if one of those pieces of programming that is available is a home energy assessment, as Francesca was mentioning, there's probably a better than even chance that the person who's going to show up at your home came from ClearResult. But I think much more important than that is that, the idea that somebody with the kind of expertise that Marcy was referencing can really go over your home with a very high level of detail And you know, again, one of the interesting things from scale is that many times our assessors do so many of these assessments that sometimes you can tell from the street what the home is going to need or what they're most going to benefit. I'm sure Marcy can speak to that. But like the fact is that homes are really individual snowflakes, and while they might share a lot of commonalities, you know, having somebody with this level of expertise and in many cases, you know, some diagnostic equipment that they can hook up to your home and see how your home performs under varying conditions can really help them identify with you the most cost-effective thing that you can do to your home. And I think that's really important, right? Like oftentimes the thing that you could do to your home that might save the most energy isn't necessarily the best thing for you to do at your home. And like the idea that you can combine your understanding of your needs for comfort and livability in your home with the expertise of somebody who can really provide a high resolution view of how your home works, I think is that really sweet spot of developing a plan to move forward. I do want to like echo a point that Francesca made, that right, like when you combine heating and air conditioning, that's the majority of energy use in the average home. So acknowledging a time check. Yeah, I mean, just there are some great things that you can do for your home. I think one of the things that I did want to touch on too, that that Tony mentioned, is that energy efficiency is responsible for a significant increase in the quality of in air quality, kind of at the system or the societal level. But one of the things that I'd like to leave you with today is that changes in energy efficiency at the individual home level improve indoor air quality in your home. And if you take that to electrification, like when we shift from any fossil fuel burning appliance to an electrified appliance, that has dramatic impact on the indoor air quality at home. And I think one of the things that's a really low investment thing to do is to actually purchase an indoor air quality monitor. You know, like we're talking about something maybe a little bit bigger than your phone that you can, it's just battery powered and you can just set it anywhere. But I would say, you know, if you're interested in this, set an indoor air quality monitor next to your stove, watch it for a few minutes, and then cook something, and then see how that indoor air quality monitor changes. But like anything that you do in this space is very likely to improve your own personal indoor air quality, and with it, like downstream effects, like maybe your personal health and certainly comfort. So another thing to consider along with the great voices on this panel.
Thank you so much, Seth. Really appreciate that. You know, speaking for myself, even as someone who is deeply involved in energy efficiency, I still learn something new every day. So thank you all. I just want to kind of touch on one sort of critical, you know, panel discussion. I think a lot of us don't get to see the difference that energy efficiency makes in our lives. And so I'm wondering, how would you all put the benefits of energy efficiency into perspective for those in attendance today? Because I think a lot of the time we just don't get to see it. And we'll open that up to the panel.
I'll jump in with just saying, oh, sorry. Just that, you know, I was looking up some estimates that in 2024, DOE estimated that energy efficiency work over the last 50 years or so helped to save homeowners a total of $100 billion on utility bills, which is like kind of a mind-boggling number. But that's a roughly 25% of like the total household energy bill nationwide. And I know it can be tough because I know around the country right now, a lot of folks are dealing with rising energy costs. So it can be a tough conversation around like, you know, they could have gone up even more if it weren't for energy efficiency, but that is really true. And I think, you know, not only do we want to see some of these programs and research investments being protected, I think we know we want to see them grow so that people can recognize some of these benefits more. And beyond just the energy bills and dollars and cents, which we know is super important, obviously, there's a lot of associated health and comfort benefits as well well that can be harder to articulate or quantify as much, but when you take actions like weatherizing your home, you can reduce the degree to which your home is getting air from your crawl space or your attic, which are pretty tough areas to keep clean, and actually improve air quality, like Seth was just mentioning. So, I think we're still figuring out the best ways to articulate those things, but there's a lot of benefits that have already been delivered there.
Thanks so much, Maddie. We'll jump to Tony real quick, and then we'll get to the Q&A because we have lots of questions rolling in.
Yeah, the other thing that I just wanted to add is that, we talk oftentimes about energy efficiency and the benefits for the people who make energy efficiency improvements, but there are benefits that go throughout the energy system. So right now we're in a moment where there's growing demand for energy from a whole bunch of different sources. And that increase in demand is potentially going to be driving up electricity rates in the years to come. And, more immediately is leading utilities to run their dirty fossil fuel plants more. And so, energy efficiency, by reducing that demand on the grid, it's not just saving money for you as a homeowner, it's actually reducing that pressure, that upward pressure on electricity rates in general by keeping demand down. So, there's so many ways in which, and I think the presenters earlier talked about, kind of tangible, concrete things that we can do in our homes to save energy for ourselves, improve our own indoor air quality, and save money. But again, these things radiate out. This isn't just important for ourselves. It's important for, keeping pollution down, keeping prices down in our cities and our states and across the country.
Okay, fantastic. We're gonna get into the Q&A session really quick. And Lorenzo, I think I have a question that is directed for you from David, who is having some trouble with a crawl space and the stacking effect, and kind of wants to know how he can improve his energy efficiency in that crawl space. And I was hoping that you could also, for anybody who's less familiar with insulation, just very briefly describe what the stacking effect is.
Yeah, so with your crawl space, and we have this in Denver as well, you can get insulation in your crawl space. You can get like a vapor barrier on the floor of it to help prevent some of the vapor coming in from the ground. And then you could also get insulation around the walls of the crawl space, and then you could also air seal sort of like when you get in, like the part into your home. Sometimes they can even put insulation on the bottom of your floor from the crawl space side. So these services are provided by professionals, all over. It just matter, yeah. Is it okay? I have one addition. So
Go right ahead.
to emphasize the importance that Francesca and about the assessment, that why the assessment is so important is because we do energy assessments as well, is there could be health issues. So if you weatherize your home without doing an assessment, you can make your home more unhealthy. So what that looks like, if there's carbon monoxide issues, if there's gas leaks, if there's other indoor air contaminants, and then you make your home more airtight without addressing those, you're essentially locking those into your home. And so to follow up with the previous question, this is one of the sort of unsaid benefits, or people don't really think about it, but there's a lot of health benefits that could go into this. So for example, in Denver, we have one of the heaviest polluted zip codes in the nation, and higher than normal asthma rates with childhood asthma. And so air sealing the home, not only are you keeping the warmth in, but you can also help keep the air contaminants out that are coming in from the outside. And if you have proper air filtration systems, and if you move more towards electrification, you can reduce the amount of indoor air contaminants. And so what this looks like for to us in Denver is for residents in this community, it's if we can help you reduce the likeliness of your child having an asthma attack, what are the just not the emotional benefits, but also the financial benefits? How much does it cost to take your child to the hospital when they're having an asthma attack, right? So there's all these unsaid health benefits that I think as researchers probably look more into, that save money as well as like emotionally, time, energy, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Fantastic. Thank you all. Really appreciate that. We did have a question in the chat about recommendations for indoor air monitors. Seth has shared a resource that I'm going to pop the link to that is now in the chat. So if anybody is interested in checking out indoor air quality monitors, that's a great resource to see what options are available to you. Yeah, now we have a question from, let's see. We have a question about how electrifying works when our grid is fossil fuel and most of the power plant fuel that makes electricity becomes waste heat. So if anybody could kind of talk about the changes that we've seen in our grid recently that may turn this a little bit on its head. Seth, go right ahead. Not to say that there's not some, go ahead, Seth.
Right, I'll just start it off. I mean, like you're in the right place. There's some great voices on this panel to talk about it. I mean, a couple interesting things, right? Like, so if we start with the baseline assumption that we've electrified the home, but we acknowledge that our electric fuel mix on a societal or kind of utility basis still includes fossil fuels. Like, has this helped, right? Like, are you helping with the overall climate change? And in short, the answer is yes. In general, the emissions that are regulated to come out of any utility generated power are far more regulated than the emissions that come out of anything that burns fossil fuels within your home. So even if your fuel mix was 100% fossil fuels, electrifying at home will still reduce your carbon footprint. And I think that's a really important place to start. I think it's, but a couple interesting points to add on to that. In 2025, 96% of new generation that came online was from a renewable energy source. So I mean, like when I think about where we're headed at night, I love thinking about that that statistic. It was really close to that in 2024 too. I think also there were at least 2 different months in 2025 where the overall electric energy generation mix actually exceeded 50% from renewable sources. So total electric generation was over 50% for a couple of different months in 2025. And that mix is becoming more renewable and less fossil based all the time, right? So it's not perfect, no, right? Like, you're not going to get to a perfect renewable solution solely by electrifying your own home, but you are absolutely making a meaningful contribution to a more sustainable grid.
Thank you, Seth. All right, this is going to be our last question. So we're going to go Maddie, Tony, Sapna, and then we're going to wrap up with some resources here. Maddie, go ahead.
I'll be quick. I just adding on to what Seth mentioned, I think none of us have dove head on into like heat pumps yet, but I think heat pumps are fantastic, relatively actually not that new technologies, but there's been a lot of advancement over the last decade or so that's made them extremely effective. And the biggest thing is the way a heat pump works is it pulls heat from the surrounding environment, whether it's the air or sometimes their ground source, rather than requiring all of that energy to be generated in a power plant. So what that means is that heat pumps are typically 3 to 4 times more efficient than your standard, like what most people think about with electric resistance heating equipment. So it's just to say that there's a lot of efficiency gains in some of the newer technologies that are available, so that even if your grid is not, like, could be cleaner, and that should be part of the solution as well, you can still benefit your home from energy and carbon reduction from installing electric heat pump equipment.
Thanks, Maddie, Tony, and then Sapna.
Yeah, I was going to make a similar point to what Maddie made, but I think that this is true. It's certainly true of heat pumps that it's almost hard to wrap your mind around how much more efficient they are at the use of energy than burning fossil fuels in your home. And that's true of other technologies too. I like to call internal combustion engine vehicles are basically heat sources that impart motion as a side effect. They're so incredibly inefficient. And electric vehicles, again, a couple, 2 to 3 times more efficient. We just got an induction stove in our house, and it's almost magical in how efficient it is and how useful it is. So I think it definitely, with electrification, there's just a step change in both our ability to reduce our energy use and in the way that it can open us up as the grid gets cleaner, to continuing to reduce pollution.
Thanks, Tony. Sapna, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to kind of pull us together, but that's an important and it's a thoughtful question, right? Because today's grid relies on a mix of our energy sources, and it's also true that all of our energy systems, whether they're power plants or furnaces or engines, involve efficiency losses when fuel is converted into usable energy. And so, at least on our end, what matters is that overall efficiency of that entire system, right? All of these little pieces of the puzzle are opening up or are completing the full puzzle. And so some end use technologies like the heat pumps that Maddie mentioned can deliver like 2 to 3 units of heat for every unit of energy they consume. So it's a good fraction there. And so for that level of performance, it can help to offset some of the conversion losses in the current upstream that we do have. At the same time, improving efficiency, power generation, strengthening our grid operations, and enhancing, of course, our buildings and equipment performance all kind of help in turn to reduce our waste across the system. Each of them are, again, the puzzle pieces that we need. And so efficiency really does help. And it kind of applies everywhere, which is why I like the efficiency space, because there's so many benefits and there's so many places to play. And so it's in how we generate energy and how we deliver it and how we use it. And so everyone has a piece to play. And so the more efficiently we're operating at every one of those steps, the less total fuel is required, and the less burden there is, and the more affordable it is for folks as well, because again, then it's reducing your own overarching utility bills, regardless of source.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, and thank you so much to everybody who submitted questions. If we didn't get to your question, we'll do our best to follow up with you later on. Just to wrap up, we have several resources to share with you all, and we have a favor to ask everyone in attendance today. Firstly, we are super proud to share that the data visualization tool is live, and we encourage everyone in attendance to explore it themselves. I'm going to plop that link in the chat, and you're all more than welcome to check it out. Now, we hope that everyone here today learned something new, something useful, something that they can take home with them. And while a lot of us here have likely done something to improve our home's energy efficiency, there are a lot of folks who don't know where to start, who are overwhelmed by the potential improvements, or just plain haven't had a chance to see it done by others. So we hope that you will change that by sharing your own energy efficiency story. I will be dropping a link in the chat to a page that will let you do exactly that. We want to hear about the Energy Star appliance that you upgraded to, the LEDs that are lighting up your life, all the way down to weather stripping doors and windows. We want to highlight the way that folks are incorporating energy efficiency into their own lives, and one of the best ways to encourage others to do the same is to lead by example. If you are looking to make energy efficiency upgrades, we have 2 final resources to share. The first is our Citizen's Guide to Reducing Home Energy Waste with a lot of whole home tips. And the second is tips for insulating your home this winter. We'll be circulating all of those resources once the webinar has concluded, but thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing their expertise and their time with us. And thank you to all those in attendance for spending your Friday afternoon with us. We hope that everyone has a restful weekend, and thanks so much for coming.